This episode is brought to you by Credit Karma. When it comes to your money, Credit Karma keeps you ahead of the game. You can count on Credit Karma to keep up with your financial needs as they evolve, helping you monitor your progress and giving you personalized recommendations so you can make strides towards your goals. Make sure you're on the right track, no matter where you are on your financial journey. Intuit Credit Karma. Karma you can count on. Download today.
100 Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I am your host, Brian Slagel. I am the CEO of Metal Blade Records. We have a new sponsor here at 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. It's the Metal Blade Museum and Store, located in Las Vegas, Nevada, right near the Strip. We have a ton of stuff in there from 43 years of Metal Blade. We've got Metallica stuff, we've got Slayer stuff, we've got Gwar, we've got Lizzie Borden. We've got tons and tons of stuff in there. We've got vinyl that you can look at for old stuff. We've got a ton of artifacts. We also have a lot of metal bands too that Metal Blade has worked with, like Deep Purple and Alice Cooper and Stars and Guns N' Roses and Thin Lizzy. So there's a lot of great artifacts there. It really is the ultimate heavy metal museum. And recently, we also have moved our Metal Blade retail store into the museum. So that's in the first part. When you first walk in, the store is there. Free to get into the store. You got to pay to get into the museum. But for more information, go to metalblade.com/museum. We do have a very important song that is absolutely worthy of that title, Sepultura's Dead Embryonic Cells from their legendary album Arise. And this is a pretty important record when it came out. It was pretty much a game changer in terms of just almost creating a whole genre on their own. Just extreme music, one of the better extreme music bands and albums that came out when it did, and really it's just so influential with so many people. And two people on here today were hugely influenced by this record. It's our friend, producer Mark Lewis, and our good buddy from Sirius XM, and you know him from a million things, Jose Mangin, who, when I asked him to do the show, immediately said this band and this song. So he's super into it. So it'll be fun to talk to them. But as always, we're going to begin north of the border with Mr. Martin Popoff.
Nice call on this track, Brian. Sepultura, Dead Embryonic Cells. This is from Arise, which was issued March 25th, 1991. So they've got the first couple of albums, very primitive, very death metal, death metal, black metal, lo-fi. Then they get signed with Roadrunner, and they've got another almost preparatory album as we move on our way to Roots. So Beneath the Remains, then we're into Arise, and what happens with Arise is a lot of different things. They get a nice big budget from Roadrunner. I think it was like 40 grand to record this album. They're recording with Scott Burns again, but now they're recording at Morris Sound. So they're recording at a studio that is made for this kind of music. You know, in conjunction with this, they're moving to Phoenix. They're getting American management, all that kind of stuff. So they are really making their play en route to Chaos AD and en route to Roots, essentially. So we get a 93 album and a 96 album after this. But here we are in 1991. And what you get out of this song is you definitely get a big uptick in production values. You get a little bit of punk influence in here. It's a lot less black metal and a lot less kind of speedy and grim. And I think you notice so there's some industrial influences as well. They're listening to some industrial. And they actually go on tour later with Helmet and Ministry, and they get on with an Aussie tour. This ends up being like a 2-year tour or something like that. 39 countries. They get a gold record in Indonesia. This one never certifies in the States, but it does well kind of all over the world. They're a pan-world band. They're kind of heroes returning to Brazil. But with this song, you definitely get, in under 5 minutes, you get a lot of different speeds. You get double bass drum. You get blast beat, so to speak. You've got some halftime stuff. So what you're getting actually out of this track is these comparisons to Slayer start to make a lot more sense, and it's to the Slayer that everybody loves the most, sort of into Reign of Blood, South of Heaven, Seasons in the Abyss. So you're getting a lot of complication in this song. which is very cool to hear. But you're also still getting that this is a band not from a standard English-making music country. It's not from the States. It's not from Britain. It's not from Australia. It's not from Canada. So you definitely get this sort of darker vibe. You know, Max is quite a grunting sort of vocalist, kind of violent, careening vocalist. What was that one quote that about this album? It sounds like an angry man throwing tools at a urinal while reading the Book of Revelation. I think that's how it went. So pretty funny. But I think what you get with this track, most famous track from this album, it was released as a single as well. You've got Orgasmatron as a really cool B-side that they do. Again, sort of showing that these guys are a little special and they're moving into a commercial realm, and they're going to move much, much further into commercial realm. The next album's actually going to go gold in the States, as is Roots, which is really cool. But yeah, on this, you definitely get a much more palatable, acceptable track. It's still underground metal, but like I say, those comparisons with Slayer are really starting to make more sense here, even though it's still pretty roughshod music the guys are making here on Arise from 1991. So yeah, great track, Brian. Good choice. Sepultura, Dead Embryonic Cells.
Thanks, Martin. Always love getting his perspective on these things and also the historical part of it. Of course, we get a little humor in there too about the throwing tools at the urinal. That was quite interesting. But yeah, good stuff from Martin as always.
This episode is brought to you by Stouffer's. Here comes 3-time juggling champion Natalia Rogers. She's juggling law school, her TA job. Oh, narrowly catches the laundry. What's that fourth ball? Parents unexpectedly showed up at dinner time? Is that too much for Natalia? Not with Stouffer's Chicken Alfredo and its mouth-watering mix of Asiago, Romano, and Parmesan. When you're juggling 4 things at once and the clock strikes dinner, think Stouffer's.
Once again, we welcome our old friend, legendary producer, Mr. Mark Lewis. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. Glad to be back.
Yeah, so I remember when I texted you about this, you were super excited to talk about this song. So tell us why.
This whole album, Sepultura Arise, it's just one of my... It's a pinnacle for me in metal, in thrash, in extreme metal. It's up there with Rain and Blood and Puppets and things like that for me in terms of song structures, production, lyrical content, riffs. It's the whole package. Just one of those things that really is undeniable. I just thought it would be a good one to talk about because I did a fair amount of work at Mora Sound, not a fair amount, but a couple records there. It was just incredible. I mean, and I started working with Sukoff when I was 20 or 21 years old, just a kid, man. And we were going to Mora Sound to cut drums for a couple records, and I of course just punished the shit out of Jim and Tom Morris.
The best guys, by the way.
The sweetest guys. And I know that they were probably annoyed by me, but just like long before then, this record had really just kind of blown the doors off of my brain, and it was one of the things I really learned the riffs on the guitar, like I did with Metallica and Slayer and Megadeth and things like that. It was every bit as in the pantheon of greatness to me. And I remember going to Morris Sound and just like standing on the plywood and Jim Morris telling me that the plywood, in their beautiful room, not that the room was made out of plywood. There was this piece of plywood that sat on the drum room floor that was big enough to hold an orchestra, by the way. That live room was massive. And as I'm sure you know, and they're like, yeah, every record we've ever recorded in this live room has been recorded, on this piece of plywood. The drums have been set up here. And all I can think about now that I know that record that place has been sold is like, where is that piece of plywood? And it should be in a museum. Yes. All the sweat and DNA on it.
So those of you who don't know, Morris Sound is a legendary studio in Tampa, Florida, where bands like Cannibal Corpse and Morbid Angel and you name it from the whole death metal scene, all made records down there, and a lot of other artists as well, a lot of local artists. And as you mentioned, the brothers owned that place, which was just an immaculate, amazing studio for many, many years. And now it's owned by TSO. They bought it, and they're doing recording stuff there all the time. In fact, I had a friend of mine, actually Rob Blasco, who you may know, who's been on our podcast as well. You can listen to his story after you listen to this podcast. But he was trying to record a song down there, so that's how I found out that TSO had owned it. So I don't know if he ever did anything down there, but I got him in touch with somebody. Because I think you could still, when they're not there, I think you can still rent it out and use it as a proper studio. So hopefully that piece of plywood is still there.
I would hope so. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I had looked into it too with the guys from Tune Track when I did one of my more recent sample packs with them. We ended up going to Sonic Ranch instead, but we just couldn't make that logistics work. But man, I miss that place, as I'm sure Jim and Tom do. They do have a new studio in Tampa, though.
And by the way, Morristown is now a historical site. They had a whole commemoration there, and there's one of those plaques that's right out in front says what it is, and that's really amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's so well deserved for them. I could spend the whole podcast talking about the studio alone, but before I get really into the production, I remember being 20 or 21 years old, working on Trivium or Chimera or something like that, and I walked out into the lobby. And there's a guy named Kent that worked there for a long time, and he was a jingle guy and like a big synthesizer sound effects guy. And he's the guy that did all the effects on all these death metal records, and Obituary, Cause of Death, the opening of that record, the Malevolent Creation album, and Arise, and all these mechanical effects. He did it. And Jim told me that, and I saw him in the lobby, and I said, "Oh man, you did the effects on Arise." And he goes, "What band was that?" And he goes, and I go, "Oh, it's Sepultura." And he goes, "Oh yeah, I think I did that." And just like walked away, like shut the door, like didn't even care. I'm like, "Oh my god, this guy like doesn't even know," And he does hundreds of albums or jingles, a year or whatever,
So we're going to talk to Jose Mangin about this. And when I asked him to do the podcast, I said, "Of course." They said, "So what would you like to talk about?" Because I always like to see what the guests are comfortable talking about. And he specifically went after this. He said, Sepultura, Dead Embryonic Cells. I'm like, all right, I'm totally down with that one, because that one definitely is one song that completely defines heavy metal because of when it came out and what it meant to the scene, and people's reactions like yours, obviously, and so many other people, where it was such a groundbreaking record at the time. There's like, whoa, this is something new that we haven't heard before.
Yeah, and I mean, the structure of the song is massive too. It's probably something Jose will talk about, but with the exception of Raining Blood, probably the first truly like neck-breaking breakdown that just spawned an entire lifetime of copycats who put a breakdown in the middle of the song and try to break your neck, and none of them have ever been as effective as Raining Blood or Dead Embryonic Cells. I mean, live, those songs are just insane. Everybody just goes nuts in the middle of both of those songs. And it's so important, man, and everything from the drum sounds to the guitar sounds and, the bass vocals, the mixing is brilliant by Andy Wallace, one of his finest moments in metal, if you ask me. I mean, I've talked to Monty Connor at length about this, just spoke with him today, actually, because I brought this up and we were talking about it, and he was, Scott Burns originally mixed the record, and Monty decided to pull it and have Andy Wallace mix it. And he said the band loves the album, obviously, but they still are slightly bitter with him about making Andy mix it, even though everybody agrees that it's a brilliant mix. And then the band goes on to hire Andy for 2 more records, and then Max hires him for Soulfly and all this stuff, Just amazing mix, and I know it took a lot of time and blood, sweat, and tears, and it shows. The production was a step up from Beneath the Remains, which I also hold in equally high regard.
Yeah, it's interesting because, the legendary Scott Burns produced the record, and he's, again, a complete legend in that underground world of death metal, extreme metal. He's one of the forefathers producing stuff, and it was really important because back then there weren't a lot of producers that understood this type of music because it was kind of new and very underground and different from other stuff. And he clearly, if you look at his resume, it's like, oh my God, he did most of the big records from that time. But and such a great guy too. And when you look at Scott Burns and Eddie Wallace is one of my favorite mixers as well. It's still a pretty like raw record. It's not overly produced at all. It's very raw, and you can feel the energy coming from it, because sometimes when you get a couple of producers like that in, they'll make it sound really good, obviously, but they'll take away a little bit of the edginess to it. And this still, I kind of forgot that Andy had mixed it, because it doesn't really sound like an Andy Wallace mix. Of course, this is many, many years ago, obviously, but because his stuff, like for example, he's doing Ghost now, and like those Ghost records sound phenomenal because Andy is mixing it.
They released some of the Burns mixes, and I remember buying them on CD in the 90s. The bonus edition or whatever had some of the Burns mixes on there, and they're pretty similar. I mean, that's the one thing I really love about Wallace is he's not going to reamp your guitars, without telling you, or he's not going to just replace something just because he didn't like it. He's going to be like, this is what you gave me and this is what you get. And he just is a brilliant balancing artist, And you can listen. The Burns mixes were great. I mean, you could even argue that maybe the drums were slightly punchier, but Andy's automation moves are more pronounced, and the guitar solos are more up front and stuff like that. And I think Burns's guitars were a little smoother, and it's just cool to hear the different takes. But yeah, I mean, just what a monumental track. I mean, it's unsurpassed.
That's when it's a lot harder, I think, now, especially for people coming in and listening to this old classic stuff, to really grasp how important it was at the time, because there's been a million bands coming after them, and there's been a lot of Sepultura records and a lot of other bands that sound like them. So when you listen to this, it's not, sometimes you don't get the feeling of how important it was, because it really was a game changer, just in terms of like what is this? This is a whole different thing. You mentioned Rain and Blood, and I think that's a really good comparison to it, where it's like, oh my gosh, that was also Slayer's, well, technically their third studio record, but we call it their fourth because of Haunting the Chapel. And this was also Sepultura's fourth record. So they both kind of really stepped it up to another level on these records. And that's, again, when Rain and Blood came out, it was like, oh my God, what is this? This is so over the top.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole package. I mean, even the cover art's great. Every song is a killer. I will say, I still think, because I do. So this is a record that's still in regular rotation. I always found the overheads to be really nerdy, to be kind of strange on this album. They almost have this MP3 quality to them, almost like a filtered sound. And I don't think it was anything that Andy did. I think it's like a phasing thing that may have happened. I don't know, or the mics that were used. It's something I've always been curious about, and would love to ask Scott about sometime. Is be like, have you ever noticed these overheads? But the cymbals sound great. The snare sound is awesome on it. The whole drum sound is great, and it sounds like the Morris Sound room, because I know what that room sounds like.
Yeah, and Scott doesn't do a lot of stuff like this, but I am going to try to pin him down to see if he'll come on. Just give me 15 minutes, man.
Yeah.
He's such a great dude, and he's done. We're definitely going to talk about more of the records he produced for sure. I mean, we're only one Cannibal song in, so I'm sure we'll get to another one of those and a bunch of the other stuff he's done. But yeah, that would be. It's always interesting when you look at stuff like this, especially to producers' ears. And I'm not really a producer, although I credited with a lot of production stuff, but you miss nuances like that I always find interesting about, I'd never really thought about that. But it makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it's just the whole thing. It's the package. It's the one.
100%. And do you remember why they didn't like Scott's mixes, or was it just Monty that didn't like it?
It was Monty. It was Monty, as far as I know. Yeah.
If you guys don't know, Monty Connor is a legendary A&R guy who worked for years and years for Roadrunner. He's now over at Nuclear Blast, and he was the man who signed Sepultura.
Yeah, and one of the most discerning ears when it came to A&R guys. It was maddening to make records for him a decade ago. Now he's very chill.
Yeah.
I've had panic attacks. I've woken up in cold sweats about what Monty may say about something, and now it's funny. We joke about it now, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm so chill now, and I don't care anymore." And it's like, as long as the record's good, it's like, all right, dude. Well, it was just always he's a guy you can impersonate for hours. If you've had experiences with him, and so a brilliant guy.
Yeah, I've known him forever. We actually, both us and Roadrunner, are trying to make him an employee, and I think he chose Roadrunner because he would have more say over the A&R stuff. But I've known Monty for even before he was at Roadrunner, so I've known him for I don't know how many, way too many years. And he's a guy I should get on this podcast as well, because he's got amazing stories.
He's the best, and he's great at telling them. Yeah, you should definitely have him on.
Well, again, man, thank you so much for doing this. Always appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again very soon.
All right, thanks a bunch. Thanks for having me.
Very happy to welcome our next guest. You know him amongst many, many other things. Sirius XM, Liquid Metal, Octane, Ozzy's Boneyard, so much stuff. The metal ambassador, Mr. Jose Mangin. How are you, sir?
Mr. Brian Slagel, it's an honor to be on your show. Thank you for your decades of service to the metal community, brother. It wouldn't be the same without all your contributions with you and your label. You're a big-time fan. I love that you continue on. You're so busy, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to do a show where I can just talk about metal and just be more busy with more metal stuff. And I love that, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, man. So you picked a great song. Sepultura's Dead Embryonic Cells. And that song to me, so the title of this podcast is 100 Songs to Define Heavy Metal. And this song, more than many others, is exactly that. Because Sepultura, especially early Sepultura, they really started to create another whole genre of metal. They started the more aggressive, heavier, you could say death metal kind of came a little bit from them, and a lot of the more aggressive genres of metal. Why did you pick this song?
Well, I wanted to pick something that meant so much to me, and also something that might have been overlooked by some previous guests. And it's not always a song that people talk about, like Master of Puppets or Raining Blood or Angel of Death or Domination or even Rust in Peace. But for me, Dead Embryonic Cells is the song that just solidified my passion for Sepultura. Watching that video on the Headbangers Ball, that was my first intro to them. And I was like, who is this? They're Latinos, and I was like, what is this? And so that song right there, just all the different patterns in the song, how the breakdown, the riffing, and I played guitar and bass, but that was a song that I would love and proud to riff on guitar on, because it's such a sick riff. So it was an easy pick, man. Sepultura is one of my top bands in my life, along with Pantera, Metallica, and it was an easy pick.
Yeah, and again, they've influenced so many bands. I mean, there's not a single metal band that doesn't know who Sepultura is and isn't a huge fan of theirs. And again, when it came out, it was such an interesting time. I mean, metal was kind of struggling, and it was a lot of the underground stuff was happening, which maybe helped them as well, because underground was kind of thriving at that point, but mainstream was kind of gone. But I remember hearing them first. I had heard about them before, but never really got a chance to really listen to them until the first record came out. And I liked it, but it didn't hit me hard at first, which is weird because a lot of people it did. But I did like it, and I kind of went back maybe, I don't know, a year later and started listening again. And then obviously subsequent records and seeing them live also was spectacular. I was a late comer to the whole death metal and that sort of heavier scene for whatever reason. Of course, now I love all that stuff, but I'll admit I was a late comer to it. But once I got into it, I realized how good it is. I like stuff that's different. When their early stuff came out, including the song, obviously, they were very different. And I hadn't heard anything like that before. And that's what I really love about a new band, is hearing something that's different.
Yeah, I mean, there was rumblings on the previous album of what this would sound like and what the direction that they were going in. But Arise, the whole album, the side B, I love so much. But those first three songs, just back to back, with Arise, Dead Embryonic Cells, and Desperate Cry, like 1, 2, 3. It's like, what? And the album cover and just everything about it, man. And the fact, again, I'm Mexican American, and Latinos in a band like that was a big, big deal for us and for Latinos. And it made me put them up on a pedestal even more because of what they represented and how passionate we were about that band. We didn't have a lot of stuff that was that awesome in Mexico, but down in Brazil with this group, yeah, man. I mean, I loved Desperate Cry. I mean, dude, it was between Desperate Cry and Dead Embryonic Cells. I love those two songs so much. We used to play Desperate Cry when I was in high school and junior high, but I picked Dead Embryonic Cells because it's just, I don't know, man. That song right there.
Oh, it's amazing. And, I hadn't listened to it for a minute. And when I went back to listen to it again, I'm like, man, this is just so good. And it still sounds really fresh today. Sometimes you go back and listen to stuff that's, a little bit older. And I mean, I would say most metal stands the test of time. But there's sometimes you'll go, it doesn't hit me as much, but this was like, probably hit me even more. I was like, I kind of got into a whole Sepultura phase for about a week there. I was listening to all the early stuff. And of course, the other thing that was really interesting about this band was they were from Brazil. And at that point, there was really not, I mean, there was a scene in Brazil, and metal's always been huge in Brazil and South America in general, and Mexico as well, as you know. But this was the first kind of, I don't want to say real band, but, real band that kind of came from Brazil, which we didn't normally see a lot of that back then.
No, and still not even really today. There's not, I mean, there are some, and if this were Ian Christie, our mutual friend, metal expert,
yes.
I mean, he would list off the whole laundry list. Oh, but these bands, but I mean, Sepultura, that's the biggest ever from Brazil. Any Brazilian that I ever meet, even if it's somebody not even related to metal, some grandma or some lady or some kid or whatever, I always ask, Brazil, Sepultura. And then they're like, oh, yeah. Like everybody knows, dude. Everybody knows that band. Even if they're not fans of the music, if they're from Brazil, they know about Sepultura. They were in Pepsi commercials back in the day. I mean, dude, they were massive. Such a big band. So I'm telling you, dude, even there was a cleaning lady that used to do our house, and she was from Brazil, and I would always just want to talk Sepultura, but she had no clue about but she knew about the band, but she didn't know anything else about it. But I was trying to always teach her so that she would go and listen, hoping that she would listen to this stuff.
Well, the other thing that really helped them too was that this was part of the tape trading movement. And I was starting to trade live music tapes like in the late 70s and early 80s, and got into the whole tape trading thing. And they benefited from that a lot, because I remember that when the first record came out, people knew who they were because it was such a hot commodity on the tape trading network. And that really helped them, because coming from Brazil, it's not so easy to get a band. Even to this day, it's not so easy to get a band from Brazil or Australia really to go, because it's so far away and there's so limited options there. But they already had a pretty good name. So when that first record came out, even before the record came out, I'd already heard of them because of the tape trading network.
Dude, do you remember that compilation? I won a compilation, Brian, when I was a little kid through Thrasher magazine, one of those things you cut out at the end and you send it in. I won At Death's Door, Volume 1, Mass Hypnosis, like how Max would say it, Hypnosis. Dude, and another thing, dude, about, I mean, I have to bring this up if we're talking about Max and Sepultura. Dude, he is the most metal human on the planet. There is no more metal person in the world to this day. Right now, he is more metal than anybody else, anywhere.
100%.
Dude, his kids, I mean, he shoots out metal sperm, and it's just like his kids and his family and grandkids and everything surrounds metal with the cavaleras, man. It's so metal. They don't go a day without some riff or some metal or something, dude. It's a beautiful thing to see the family after all these years, how metal they are. And it's beautiful and it's pure and it's authentic, dude. He's the biggest metal fan. And his kids get him into these newer bands. And when he's doing takeovers on Liquid Metal, like he's talking about these deep, like subterranean death metal band. I'm like, what the fuck, Max? Wow. Like he's a student of the music still and the genre. And that's what's so beautiful. And I just heard New Soulfly yesterday, Brian, and we're going to be debuting it on Liquid Metal in a couple of weeks, man. But I'm excited about that. He's just always making music.
Well, I love the fact you brought up the family, because I was going to bring that up as well, because his wife is a very, very old friend of mine, Gloria Cavalera now, who I first met in Phoenix because she was managing Sacred Rights.
Sacred Rights,
yes. I went to Phoenix to see them. We'd already signed Flotsam and Jetsam at that point from Phoenix.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, Metal Blade Records has the two biggest metal bands from Arizona. That's so cool. Thank you, Metal Blade.
Hey, I love Phoenix. And but I went to see them and met Gloria for the first time, and she was awesome. Like, her whole family was amazing. They're all metal family too, so it's no surprise that those two got together, and they're still happily married all these years later. And she's a really, really great person, and you know, everybody, that whole family, like you said, are really great. Pure metal. They do all the right things. They treat people the right way. Just awesome stuff. I love all that, and everything he does is really great.
There was a time when I had permission from Max and Gloria to change my last name to Cavalera, and
an adoptive kid. That's nice.
No, I mean, just nervous to change my name because I'd just be like way cooler, like Jose Cavalera. You know, I just like instantly it's tons of fucking metal weight being put into your body when your last name is Cavalera, man.
Credibility.
Yeah, dude. I love them so much, Brian, so much. They're treasures here on earth.
Agreed.
Again, and you asked me a reason why I picked it. I mean, because of that stuff like this. It's not just because of the value and the weight of the song, but it's the people making it. It's the man behind it. And Max is my favorite metal man in the world. Very close with Max. I was very close with another favorite metal man in the world, Vinnie Paul, and I were very close. And he was super freaking cool and super metal and super badass. But Max is the different. And Chuck Billy is another one of my absolute favorite metal
the metal community is amazing. And
but
everybody
there's something about Max,
fans,
like
whether
he's
you're
just
Metallica or all the way down. They're all fans. They started as fans. We all started as fans. We're all still fans, and that's a great thing. And so, I mean, there's so many great people. I talk to people in other industries sometimes, and they go, things that aren't entertainment, or just which are all very important, obviously. But you hear about these riffs and people working together and don't like them. It's like in the metal community, it's like there's so few of that, if any, really. Like everybody gets along and everybody does really well. I mean, there are some fractions there that don't get along quite well, and including the band we're talking about. But being in a band is very difficult, and people know that. But that being said, they're all great, and all the people you mentioned are just great people, amazing people. I did want to ask you, since I have you here, because I always love these sort of stories. So how did you get into metal? What did you first hear that got you into this?
This is a good one. Well, my cousin, rest in peace to David Lee from Douglas, Arizona. He was 6 years older than I was, and my parents weren't big music fans or anything, like maybe Mexican music, but I just saw him. And I had 5 cousins from my aunt, and he was the youngest, so he was closest in age to me, but he was still older. And he had long hair, black freaking rock and roll t-shirts, denim freaking pants, motorcycles, a back shed in the backyard with black light posters, titty posters, a pot leaf, a big bright green pot leaf. I just thought that was super cool. And all of his Stephen King books as well. His twin bed had a bookcase at the head of it, and it was where he had all of his Stephen King paperbacks. And I just was looking at that stuff, and I was like, wow, this looks so cool. And then seeing his posters, like his room was decorated, and I just, from like 5 years old, I remember just thinking that was the coolest thing. And then I got my first album with money that my grandma gave me. My dad took me to Kmart, and I bought Shout at the Devil, Motley Crue.
Oh, wow.
And that was when I was 5 years old. And yeah, that was it. And then I had a little bit of leftover money, and I went back to Kmart the next weekend, and my dad helped me buy Out of the Cellar from Rat. So I sat with those 2 albums for 6 months, a year, and I just marinated in metal, in that Motley Crue Rat metal sauce, and that is what set me off. And then it was Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Ozzy Osbourne, and then Def Leppard, and then Skid Row, and then after Skid Row, Pantera, Metallica, and then it was Sepultura, Megadeth, Anthrax, and then it was all that, so Korn, Machine Head, all that other, so the whole ride up. But it started with Motley Crue and Rat.
How cool is your dad to take you at that age and let you buy something called Shout at the Devil?
My dad was very supportive. He was 49 when I was born. He passed 22 years ago, and he always called this music train wreck music. And he'd be, you and that train wreck music. But he supported me in my bass playing in band since I was in 5th grade. He always supported me. He did. He always supported the metal. He didn't really take me to shows because we were 2 hours south of Tucson, and that's the closest metal show. So I had to go on a bus to Tucson if I wanted to go to concerts and stay at my cousin's house because he lived in Tucson, the same guy that got me into metal. He took me to Queensryche and Metallica, and my very first concert was Anthrax and Iron Maiden. No Prayer to the Dying tour. Nice. And it was Anthrax just put out Persistence of Time, which I have tattooed on the back of my leg. So yeah, man, that's how but my dad was very supportive. My mom, my mom thought it was satanic music for like every Mexican mom at the time, but she ended up loving it. My dad ended up loving it, especially when I got the job at Sirius Satellite Radio 25 years ago. My dad was like, wow, so I was supposed to go to school to be a pharmacist. So, but my dad was very proud of what I decided to do, and to like have a fork in the road, and I went towards metal, and I've been very blessed ever since. But supportive family with the metal, but it was definitely my cousins who got me into metal, and I always give him credit. And he passed away a few years ago, man. So
sorry to hear that.
It's David's a badass, and he's definitely the angel of metal in my life.
Well, you and your wonderful wife have done the same thing, passing along the metal torch to your children as well.
No, Brian, dude, I was too forceful in raising my daughters. I never gave them an option other than metal, and I think that was probably the wrong.
They've rebelled a bit now?
Yeah, I think I was so aggressive with metal in my whole life. Everything that I do, Brian, as you know, is in the name of metal. Not even on the radio or on any sort of camera, just in life. It's in the name of metal. And I think my daughters definitely steered the other way. My oldest is a singer. She loves Hailstorm a lot and Evanescence, that's as cool as she gets right there down that spectrum.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, it's
they'll look. You've got them into music, and that's the most important thing.
Yes,
so it's all good.
She's in the music, and our other one's more into like Lana Del Rey and Tate McRae and what's the other? Oh, Sabrina Carpenter and stuff. So I failed hard on that one.
That's okay, man. Those are really good artists.
No, they are.
So
and they're hot, and that's cool. But but still,
if she hasn't already, tell her to check out Jessie Murph.
Jessie, she probably knows. I've heard of that artist.
She's an up and coming. Okay. Yeah, she's an up and coming one that's really good, and she's really talented. Live band, all her members, of course.
I like that. I like that. But she's a lot.
She's pop. She's done stuff with Jelly Roll and some other hip hop artists. But she's really interesting. She's a really good singer.
I know who's now the Jelly Roll thing is making a connection. Well, who's a freaking awesome metalhead, and I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks. She's playing at one of the casinos in the deserts over here. Carrie Underwood.
Oh,
She's a huge metal fan, huge metalhead. And I cannot wait to see her and introduce Melissa to Carrie and stuff. I was like, hey, babe, I'm going to take you to go see Carrie Underwood. And she was like, why? I was like, what do you mean why? Because she's fucking awesome. Yeah. And don't you want to meet her and hang out? She's like, well, I guess so. I was like, what? So yeah, dude, no, I love Carrie. She's such a badass. And I love that she's waving the flag for our music as well.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about her. And it's interesting how so many artists like that are metalheads. I mean, Demi Lovato is a huge metalhead.
Yes, big metalhead, yeah.
I'm good friends with all the guys in Morgan Wallen's band because they're all metalheads. The Jelly Roll band guys are all metalheads. They're literally everywhere. Taylor Swift's bass player's favorite band is Slayer. So there you go.
Oh, nice. I did not know that. I love that. And Post Malone's a freaking huge metalhead. He's got a Dimebag tattoo and a Megadeth tattoo on his hand.
Oh, yeah. I know his photographer really well, who's a massive metalhead. So I've got to meet Post a couple times, and the sweetest, nicest guy. And at one of the shows, I got into a conversation with his dad, that's where the metal love comes from. He's a huge fan. His favorite band is Megadeth, so he started debating what's the best Megadeth record. And
Post Malone's dad's
huge metal
band is Megadeth. Yeah.
Favorite band is Megadeth.
Dude, that's why Post Malone's got the fucking Megadeth tattoo.
Exactly.
Man. Wow. Exactly. Dude, this is some investigated fucking journalism. This is some deep shit right now. We're uncovering some deep fucking things, dude. Wow.
They are everywhere. You just never know. But I love that.
So his dad's a legit metalhead. I love that too. Thanks, Mr. Malone.
Yes.
It's very cool.
Yes, and he passed it down to his son as well. And like I said, the guy who does all of his photography is a massive metalhead. Shout out to Adam. He's a great dude. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, real quick shout out to, you mentioned Vinny, and of course, I was good friends with both Vinny and Dime, and just the nicest, sweetest people. So great. Rex as well. I mean, all those guys are really great. And I was a little conflicted at first, being so close to Dime, especially, and Vinny as well, especially when we moved to Vegas. He was the mayor of Vegas, pretty much. What's your opinion on the new Pantera, or the new version of Pantera?
I am for it. Because it is getting the music out to people that have never seen them before. It is getting the music that Vince and Daryl wrote with their blood, sweat, and beers. That stuff is out there now in a big way. Now, I would love for there to be more of a tribute every show to St. Diamond, St. Vinny. I would do it differently myself, but I love that the band is out there and doing this. I was there at the very first show in December of 2022 in Mexico City, outside of Mexico City, at the Hell in Heaven Fest. I was there to see this happen in person for the first time, which was a very big deal, and they pulled it off. And I love how Zach is playing Dime's parts through Zach's fingers and soul, and he's not trying to mimic. I love the respect and love that Charlie has for St. Vinny, and you know, the faces on the drum kits and in the interviews. And I know how much of a fan and friend Charlie was with Dime and Vinny. And Dime played 6 songs with Anthrax throughout the career. 6 official guest appearances on Anthrax songs. Dimebag was the official 6th member of Anthrax for a very long time and forever be that. So Charlie is the perfect person to fill St. Vinny's huge void here on Earth. Yeah, I'm for it. I don't want it to become something where it's just about money. I would be doing it differently because I'm such a fan of St. Diamond, St. Vinny.
I agree. And I know Vinny never wanted this to happen because I had that conversation many times with him. But I'm with you. I was a little hesitant going in just because I know Vinny didn't really want this to happen. But I love Rita, and, you know, Rita felt this was the thing to do. And I get it. And I saw it the first time when they opened for Metallica in Dallas, of all places. Ooh. I was like, wow, this is really good. I mean, Phil is taking it very seriously, sounded and looked great. As you said, Zach's amazing, and Charlie's such an unbelievably talented guy. He's the perfect guy, and he really does a phenomenal job. And I think the tribute stuff they did there was really good. I'm curious to see now the headline run, because we have a Monomarth opening for them, so I'm going to go to at least a couple of those shows, so I'll be curious to see it. But I'm with you. I'm happy for the fans that it's there. So back to Sepultura.
And by the way, the first time I saw Sepultura was when they opened for Pantera on the Far Beyond Driven tour. It was Prong, Sepultura, and Pantera, yep. And that was a massive show in my life, and that's when I actually met Dime and Vinny and Rex for the very first time. And Dime was so cool to me. That moment changed my life. That concert changed my life forever. And I got a chance to meet the guys in Sepultura as well. At that same night, I traded some weed for after show passes with some guy that had some laminates. It's crazy how it all happened, but I guess it was meant to be, man. It was meant to be that way. Trading weed. This guy walking around. We were in the grass in the amphitheater at Compton Terrace, the old venue.
Oh, yeah.
Chandler, Arizona. And that's where I went to my first concert.
I might have been at that show. I was going to ask you if you saw that tour. You read my mind, by the way, because
yes.
I was there, and I might have, I'm pretty sure I was at the one in Phoenix, actually, too.
The Pantera's Sepultura-Prong show?
Yeah. Because I saw a few of those.
Yeah, that was Compton Terrace, but the one that one stop was Compton Terrace in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Chandler.
I'm pretty sure I was there because I had a place in Phoenix, and I went to a lot of shows out there.
Dude, that was 94, right? 90,
yep.
Something like that.
Yep. I'm almost certain I was there because I went to I think 3 or 4 of those shows on that tour. And I went to shows in Phoenix all the time.
That's so cool, Brian, that we were at the same show, but you didn't trade weed for after show passes because you were already hooked up, bro.
I did not do that.
I was in high school and I was not hooked up with passes. Traded weed for 2 after show passes. We were backstage. It was like a meet and greet with a bunch of people at picnic tables out in the back, and we waited and waited and waited. The band didn't show up. My friend's older sister is the one that drove us 3.5 hours from Douglas to Chandler, Arizona. So she was pissed that we were making her wait and her friend out, and we didn't have cell phones or anything back in those times either. So it was panicking, and my friend was panicking, like, dude, we got to go. And I was like, there's no fucking way. I got to meet these dudes. So then I snuck off in between some semi trucks and that were really like right next to each other. Got to the other side. There were some people pulling up some stuff into their semis. And then all of a sudden I saw an outdoor 4x4 trailer and a curtain, sliding glass door open and the curtain open. And there was Dimebag holding a red cup, fucking smiling and laughing. I can hear him. And I was like, oh shit, there they are. And then a security guard turned his back for a quick second. He was talking to some chick, and I ran up these little stairs into this trailer, closed the sliding glass door behind me. And then I looked at them and smiled, and they were like, Dime was like, can I help you? And I was like, and I just got my first Pantera tattoo. I was 16 and a CFH on my shoulder. And I went up to Dime and I said, check it out, bro, scarred for life. And he was like, dude, yeah, man, what's up? And he just started hugging me. He's like, you want something to drink? And I was like, yeah, Dime, that'd be cool. You know, I'm 16. And then he gives me a beer. We have a black tooth. I asked him if he wants to smoke some weed. And he's like, yeah, pull it out if you got it, motherfucker. And so I pulled out this little shredded, sweaty pinner that I had in my pocket because I was in the fucking mosh pit and it was all sweaty and like thin and so weak looking. And then he laughed at it. He was like, what's that? And I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I was in a pit, Dime. And he was like, take a hit of this. And it was a big bomber going around a circle. And I remember Paulo was there from Sepultura. And then Rex was there. Tommy Victor from Prong was there. And they were in this smoke circle. And I fucking couldn't believe where I was. And then Big Val comes into the room and he's like, hey, guys, there's people that have been waiting out there for, you got to go out there now. It's too late. And then Dime was like, oh, guys, come on, man. We got to go, man. We got to go. And I was like, Dime, my friend's out there. And he was like, oh, so he ripped the poster off the dressing room wall, signed it. The band signed it. Phil wasn't there. We made our way back to the meet and greet. Now there was 40 people. Now there's 7 people left. And my friend who sees me walking up with Dime was like, what the fuck? And that's my fucking cool. And then Dime gave me a big hug and he was like, thanks, Jose. And that was, he treated me like gold. And I was just this fucking, metal fan. Little metal fan. So
that's an amazing story, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I hung out with those guys a lot and they were always the friendliest, nicest guys. Yeah. All of us started as fans and they always got that. Before I let you go, I want you to talk a little bit about what you do with Headbangers for Science, which is really cool.
Headbang for Science. Yeah, man. I started it years ago. I had a dream about it in 2014 when I woke up the next morning and I started Headbang for Science. It was like a Sunday morning and I started registering on LegalZoom and I completed and I got the federal tax designation as a 501c3 for Headbang for Science. We give money to students that want to be doctors and scientists and who love metal. And I'm talking the physical sciences, not computer science, not physical therapy. I'm talking about like immunology, microbiology, pharmacy, medicine, nursing, like real shit, real physical science stuff and medicine stuff. We need more of these types of people. And they're the biggest paying jobs. It's so freaking dumb that there's not more metalheads that are looking to do something like that, man. Metal is in all professions. And I love to see it in the science and medical realm. And I think with Headbang for Science, I can push people to pursue that type of stuff and also love metal. And I've given out in 3 years $99,000 to 9 Far Beyond driven students. And I will continue to give out $33,000 to 3 students every year. I have enough right now for the next 2 years, but it's just basically me by myself doing this. I teamed up with bold.org to help manage the scholarship application process. This year, I required a video as well as a written essay, 666 words or less. High school seniors are open to apply, undergrads and grad students.
That's awesome, man. Headbang for Science, check it out. Go take a look at it. Give if you can. If it's something that you want to do, check it out. And thank you so much for doing that. That's really great. Thank you for all you've done for metal. You're a very important part in our whole world. And, you're a big part in just helping people to listen to bands and get into bands from all this great Sirius XM stuff. So thanks for all that. Thank you for doing this. And let's keep going, man. Keep doing all your stuff.
Hey, Brian, you know how I feel about you, brother. Much respect and love. And thank you for the decades of metal service, man. This is a part of my calling in life, just like it is for you. So I do preach metal everywhere I go, and it's changed my whole life. And I'm very thankful to it. And I love it. And I never take this for granted. And I love this. So thank you. Fuck yeah.
There you have it. Super fun episode. Very important song. Thank you so much to Jose Mangin, Mark Lewis, Martin Popoff, our theme song from the great Lizzie Borden, and producer, the man who makes it all run, Mr. Christian Blatt. We'll see you guys next episode.